BF Day proudly presents Mr. M's Math Class.
Hey guys, and welcome to episode 10 of Mr. M's Math Class. It's pretty incredible that it's been 10 episodes now. And YouTube actually gave me a interesting email this morning and said that we have 100 subscribers. So thank you so much, all of you, for subscribing to the video and watching them and enjoying them as much as I enjoy making them. So awesome. We're going to go over the agenda real quick. Oh, before I talk about the agenda, I wanted to make a quick kind of like error mistake. I accidentally forgot to upload John's challenge of the week, quarantine challenge question of the week, and he actually did get it correct, so he will also be joining our lunch this afternoon, but he also got the challenge question right. So along with Oliver, Mateo, and Toby, John also got it right. So nice job, the four of you. For the agenda today, the first thing we're going to do is, of course, look at pictures of you looking at episode 9. But it is not just pictures of you looking at the episode. It's also pictures of you doing the scavenger hunt, which are great. So thank you for sending those in. 2, our estimation 180 is provided by Elise and Jaden today. So they collaborated on a estimation question. 3, I'm going to talk really quickly about some observations from exploration number 9 really quickly. And then number 4, I'm going to introduce a new math exploration, and we're going to cover a lot today. Very simple concepts, but I'm going to try to do a lot today. So we're going to talk about parallel lines, perpendicular lines, intersecting lines, line symmetry, and also classifying triangles. So we're going to do a lot, but just remember that you can watch the video over and over again, but the concepts are rather simple. 5, I'm going to introduce a new coloring sheet, and we have a new batch of Ken-Kens today. And then lastly, 6, we'll have our goodbye message and the answer to the estimation 180. So start us off, here are pictures of you looking at episode 9, and again, also doing the scavenger hunt. It was really cool that some of you guys looked at those angles in the neighborhood, in your houses, in your rooms. It was really cool seeing all those different angles. If you noticed Houston's picture, all those paintings, his grandma actually painted all of those, which is really, really cool. So thanks for sending that in. That was a really sweet picture. Next up, we have our estimation 180. Again, this was provided by Jaden and Elise. They actually video called together and thought about what estimation they wanted to do. And their question is, how much does this box of salt weigh? Again, how much does this box of salt weigh? All right, so some observations from your math exploration number 9. First off, everybody got it. For the most part, like 99% of you got everything correct. The angles aren't really that complicated. I'm sure you've learned them before, so this was not a super complicated lesson. The one thing that I did notice was that a few of you, not many, but a few of you forgot to there was a question on I think it was a worksheet called angles and polygons, and you have to figure out which polygon had 4 right angles. A lot of you very rightfully circled the square, And you also had to look at and circle the rectangle. So there was two of them. Some of you forgot to circle the rectangle. So there was two of them that had right angles. But other than that, everything looked fantastic. And as you all noticed, our world is full of right angles. I'm sure you can see behind me, and there's right angles everywhere. There's some acute angles and maybe even some obtuse angles here in this Foo Fighters poster right there. But overall, our world is full of right angles. And some of you said they're easy to build with. Obtuse angles are just really weird, and so they're not very supportive. But really interesting observations, and so it was great reading everything. So thank you so much for sending those in. All right, so as I mentioned, our new math exploration today is going to revolve around 4 parts. So I'm going to introduce a few things to you, and I'm going to change the camera angle again so you can see my piece of paper. But I'm going to go over parallel lines, intersecting lines, perpendicular lines. We're going to look at classifying triangles, and then also look at line symmetry. So there's a lot we're going to pack in here, but it should be rather quick. And again, I will change the camera angle, and so you'll be able to see what I'm seeing with my hands, and you'll still be able to hear me. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about today is parallel, perpendicular, and intersecting lines. And first, I'm going to give you the definition for parallel lines. So parallel lines are lines that are always the same distance apart, and they will never cross or intersect. That means that they'll never cross. There's another word for crossing, intersect. And so here's an example of some parallel lines. As you can see here, they are the same distance apart. And if I were to extend both these lines to infinity, they would never cross each other or intersect each other. So this is an example of a parallel line. Intersecting lines are lines that intersect or cross each other. So here is an example of an intersecting line. As you can see here, it's pretty straightforward. These two lines are clearly crossing, or they're intersecting, and so that's why they are called intersecting lines. And then lastly, a very special type of intersecting line. So this line that I'm about to show you, they do cross each other, but they make a very specific type of angle. And we learned about this angle, and it's the most popular angle that I'm sure you found on your scavenger hunt. And these are perpendicular lines, and perpendicular lines are special intersecting lines. Where they cross, they form a right angle. And as you can see here, there are 4 right angles. And so if two lines intersect and they make a right angle, they're not just intersecting lines, they're also perpendicular lines. All right, so we're going to talk now about some figures here. And here we can see that there are some parallel lines, there's some perpendicular lines, and each one of these lines has a very specific name. So this is line A, and there's a little tiny undercase A. There's a line B, and then a line C. So there's some statements I can make about these lines. So I can say that line A and line B are parallel. So I'm going to write that here. Line A and line B are parallel. I could also say that line A and line C are perpendicular to each other. Line A and line C are perpendicular to each other. I could also say that line A and line C intersect, but I would be more accurate to say that they are perpendicular. So they form a perpendicular angle, right? And I'm wondering if you can think about any other statements that I can say here. So I'll challenge you right now to think about some of them in your head, or even say them out loud to the video. What else can I say about these lines? All right, the next figure we're going to discuss is a little bit different here. And we have some more angles, and the angles are represented here by numbers. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we have line F, line D, and line E.
Now, it's a really interesting thing here. If you remember, a straight angle is an angle that measures 180 degrees. So I know that line 1 plus line 2 has to equal 180. So I'm going to write here angle 1 plus angle 2 has to equal 180 degrees, because that is what a straight line measures. Now, another really interesting thing here is that whatever angle 2 measures, the opposite angle, angle 3, will measure the same thing. And same with here with angle 1 and angle 4. These will also be the same. So because they are across from each other, they will equal the same angle. So I have my protractor here, and I'm going to put my circle on the vertex, the center of the angle here. Make sure that that line is lined up. And I can see here that it looks like it's a 45-degree angle. Now, I know it can't be 135 because it's an acute angle. So this is 45 degrees. Now, I could measure this other one, but given my equation here, 45 degrees plus something has to equal 180. Right? So I could do some simple subtraction, 180 minus 45. And that should give me what this angle 2 measures. So let me do that real quick. So this measures 135 degrees. Now, as I mentioned before, opposite angles that are across from each other are the same. So angle 3 is also 135 degrees, and angle 4 is 45 degrees, just like angle 1. So there is going to be something similar to this in your worksheet, and I'm going to give you the answer to one of them, to a few of them, so that, and you should be able to figure out the rest, because I know some of you don't have protractors. All right, so for this next part, we're going to be thinking about triangles and how everything that we've just learned in today's lesson and in the last lesson will apply to classifying triangles. And so there are two ways that you can group triangles. You can group them by their angles, by the size of their angles, or the length of the sides of the triangles. Now here we have three different types of triangles that are based on the angles. If every single angle in a triangle is acute, which means that if all the angles are less than 90 degrees, they are acute triangles. Now that's the only one where this applies for triangles if they're all acute. They all have to be acute angles inside of the triangle. So you can see here, that's acute, that's acute, that's acute. For this one, only one can be a right angle. And if one of the angles in a triangle is right, then it is a right triangle. And I'm wondering, and the kids don't believe me, why is there only just one? And a challenge is, can you draw a triangle with two right angles? And if you're really curious about that, you can see if you can figure that out. But if only one has a right angle, then it is a right triangle. And very similarly to the right triangle, if one of the angles, just one, if one of the angles is obtuse, then it is an obtuse triangle. And again, same challenge. If you don't believe me, try to see if you can draw a triangle with more than one obtuse angle. It's impossible. So you can try that there. So these are the three different types of triangles based on the angles. Now, the other way to classify a triangle is to also look at the length of the sides of the triangle. Now, if all the sides are exactly the same, these are called equilateral triangles. That means that all have to be the same. If two of the sides are the same length, so here those two sides are the same, these two sides are the same, those two sides are the same, but one of the sides is clearly not the same length as the other, it is called an isosceles triangle. And then lastly, it's pretty simple. If none of the sides are the same, none of them, then it is a scalene triangle. And in your worksheet, you're going to answer some questions based on this information up here. All right, the last thing we're going to talk about in today's exploration is line symmetry. And we talked about this when we did those snowflakes for the winter break. If you remember, right before we left for winter break, we did some snowflakes and we talked about symmetry. And those snowflakes had a lot of symmetry. And here are some shapes. Here on the left side, all these shapes here have at least one line of symmetry. And I'm going to go over some of these real quickly. This H, that's a line of symmetry. And if I were to fold the H on that line, it would be exactly the same on both sides. It would fit perfectly on top of each other. And also here. So if I folded it that way, that would be another line of symmetry. Looking at this equilateral triangle here, that's one line of symmetry. That's another line of symmetry. And that's another line of symmetry. So that's 3 lines of symmetry here. This trapezoid is interesting. It has one line of symmetry, and that's it. I can't fold it. If I were to cut it this way, and I fold it on top of each other, it wouldn't fit perfectly. This one here, one line of symmetry, and one line of symmetry. Now this one tricks people, because some kids will think, well, I can do a diagonal line of symmetry. But if you were to do that, and fold it on top of each other, it actually wouldn't land on top of each other. It wouldn't work. That was my protractor that just fell. So that's why there's only 2 lines of symmetry for this rhombus. So just be mindful of that. And then all of these shapes on the right side have no lines of symmetry. So this, if I were to try to find a line that would fit anywhere here, it wouldn't actually fit perfectly. So that wouldn't work. And again, you have some questions here underneath for you to work on and work on some symmetry.
All right, so I know that seemed like a lot, but like I said, the concepts are rather simple. So one thing to know about this assignment is that you'll have 5 worksheets that are connected to this lesson. And then there's going to be a short 1-page quiz that you're going to have to do on your own without anybody's help, and then turn that in. Some of you have been able to figure out how to write on the PDFs and on the Word documents. So I'm actually going to show you, those of you who don't have printers, how to actually write onto the worksheet using Word. So I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to open up the worksheet for today. So this is the worksheet, one of the worksheets for the exploration. They're all in the same document, as you can see here. And what you'll do here is, this is just a picture. So what you want to do is you want to go to draw, and then you should have some options for markers and pens. So I'm going to choose this pencil here. I'm going to scroll down to make sure that it's thick so I can actually see it. And I'm going to click on ink to shape. Again, ink to shape, that's really important, because if you don't click on that, it won't work. And so it says, fill in the bubbles in front of the words and describe each set of lines below. Then explain your answer. How do you know the first one is done for you? So these are parallel lines. And so I'm going to, if you can see here, I'm coloring here that parallel line. It's not perfect, but parallel line. And then these are perpendicular lines. And then there you go. One thing that you can do for your how do you know is you can either write this on with a thing with your pencil, or you can go here to the text box, and then it says draw a horizontal text box, and then you can draw that here. And then how do I know? I know this because, as you can see here, I am able to write onto this worksheet. One thing that you have to do is save the document under your name, and then you can turn this document in instead of taking a picture into Schoology, or again, send it to me on an email. So I just want to really quickly show you that. That is going to be due this following. All right, so I know that seemed like a lot, but like I said, the concepts are rather simple. So one thing to know about this assignment is that you'll have 5 worksheets that are connected to this lesson. And then there's going to be a short 1-page quiz that you're going to have to do on your own without anybody's help, and then turn that in. Some of you have been able to figure out how to write on the PDFs and on the Word documents. So I'm actually going to show you, those of you who don't have printers, how to actually write onto the worksheet using Word. So I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to open up the worksheet for today. So this is the worksheet, one of the worksheets for the exploration. They're all in the same document, as you can see here. And what you'll do here is, this is just a picture. So what you want to do is you want to go to draw, and then you should have some options for markers and pens. So I'm going to choose this pencil here. I'm going to scroll down to make sure that it's thick so I can actually see it. And I'm going to click on ink to shape. Again, ink to shape, that's really important because if you don't click on that, it won't work. And so it says fill in the bubbles in front of the words and describe each set of lines below. Then explain your answer. How do you know the first one is done for you? So these are parallel lines. And so I'm going to, if you can see here, I'm coloring here that parallel line. It's not perfect, but parallel line. And then these are perpendicular lines. And then there you go. One thing that you can do for your how do you know is you can either write this on with a thing with your pencil, or you can go here to the text box, and then it says draw a horizontal text box, and then you can draw that here. And then how do I know? I know this because, as you can see here, I am able to write onto this worksheet. One thing that you have to do is save the document under your name, and then you can turn this document in instead of taking a picture into Schoology, or again send it to me on an email. So I just want to really quickly show you that. That is going to be due this following Monday, April 27th. So if you can turn it in by the end of the day, that'd be great, so I can get started on the video as early as possible on Tuesdays to get that out to you as early as possible. All right. All right, so I hope you enjoy the work for this next math exploration. We have a new coloring sheet for this episode, and it's just a single sheet, and it is a mystery Disney character from Toy Story 4. That's all I'm going to say. So I'm actually not going to show you a picture of the finished product because obviously you'll figure it out. And then there's also going to be some new Ken-Kens this episode, so there'll be a new batch of Ken-Kens for you to do. Again, if you don't have a printer, you can always download the app, and that app is free, and you can do the Ken-Ken on a phone or on a tablet, or even online on a website. So kenken.com, and it's fantastic. And then quick reminder about the quarantine challenge question number 4. That is due on the 28th. That's next Tuesday at noon. So make sure to turn those in to me by then. And then I will announce the winners on the episode for Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining me on episode 10. Seems like a pretty big deal that we're on episode 10 already, which is pretty amazing. So thanks for joining me. I really miss you guys a lot. I feel like going to those class meetings last week with Mr. Oligario was really great to see all of your faces. And so I just hope that we can find a way to make things a little bit more smooth for you guys in terms of just like, I don't know, making things, having more fun things for you to do. So Mr. Oligar, Ms. Noring, and I have met, and we've talked about some fun things that might come up in the next month or two to hopefully entertain you guys a little bit more. So look for those announcements later on. And here is the answer to the estimation 180 question by Jaden and Elise. Goodbye.